So the amazing thing, I know, he said give it a hit. But what I would say is at 4:14, you all did quiet down. There was a lull. And we didn't jump right in, me. And so there was more conversation. So good afternoon. Everybody's awake now. So good afternoon and welcome to Grand Rapids Community College Board of Trustees meeting for Monday, September 16, 2024. And let's start with introduction of guests. So trustees, President Lepper, might anyone have guests in the audience that they'd like to introduce? Okay, hearing none. Our first order of business today is the approval of the agenda. Trustees, please note that this is the time to remove any item from the consent agenda for separate consideration if necessary. Are there any additions, deletions, corrections to the agenda? Okay, may I have a motion for the approval of the agenda then?
So moved.
Report.
Okay, any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion to approve the agenda carries. Now we will have the time for public comment. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to address the board, you may do so at this time. Not seeing any movement. We shall continue. Let's see, so we are on special order of business, and I believe Vice President Lisa Freiberger is going to come up and talk a little bit about the local strategic value resolution.
Yes, thank you and good afternoon. Before you is our annual local strategic value resolution. This resolution is required as part of the State School Aid Act or our funding package. This resolution specifically is tied to 5% of any new revenue allocation that we receive from the state on an annual basis. For us, for this fiscal year, just as point of reference, that represents $15,600. So that is really what's at stake with this resolution. That being said, this is one of my favorite resolutions to work through. It is a great synopsis of some of the amazing things that this institution does to serve our students in our community. We are required as part of this resolution to show how or to demonstrate how we meet 4 out of 5 best practices as defined by the state in 3 different areas, one around economic development, workforce development, one around educational partnerships, and then one around serving our community. This is certainly a joint effort. There are many across the institution that help pull all of this data together. And the state always requests that we're brief, and there's just so much that we're able to share. We certainly go well above meeting 4 of the 5. We meet all 5 in each one of those 3 categories, and we had to leave stuff off of the agenda or of the resolution. We certainly could have provided much more detail. This is for your consideration this evening. Once approved, this will get sent into the state and posted on our transparency website that is located on the front page of our institutional website. With that, want to thank all those that participated in helping to pull all of this together, and would be happy to answer any questions that you would have about the requirement or anything in the resolution.
I have a question about the best practices. Is this separate? It sounds like it's separate and distinct from our base funding, which has its own best practices in the boilerplate budget. Is this is on top of, so the formula?
This is
part of the budget?
This is a component of the formula. Great
Okay.
question. So any new resource is put through the formula, 30% of which is allocated based on prior year resource, and then 30% is allocated based on performance metrics. Part of it is allocated based on numbers of students served with a weighting on certain STEM-related fields. Part of it is allocated based on an administrative component, and then the last piece of that big performance new funding allocation methodology, 5% of that is based on local strategic value. So it is a component of the annual new operating funding. For this year, remember that the state provided us with 1.5% increase overall ongoing increase in our base funding. This is 5% of that 1.5%.
Okay.
And then the state also provided a 1% one-time money allocation, and that's off to the side.
Okay, thank you. It does, thank you. And then how much does it amount to, this 5%? Did you say 15?
$1,633 to be
Okay,
precise.
thank you. Thanks.
Additional questions?
So, Lisa, on the website, would there be delineation of educational best practices, what that looks like?
The entire resolution will be posted on our website. So if you go to our homepage and scroll all the way down to the bottom, there is called a transparency icon, a circle badge, if you will, that's at the very bottom of our website. The size of the badge and exactly what it looks like is prescribed by the state. And if you click on that link, it takes you to a series of reporting requirements that we're required to have posted directly from this link. And this link is required to be on the homepage for our institution and all other community colleges as well as school districts. And this resolution is part of that. You will also find there our annual financial statements. You'll find our budget, any budget amendments, all of our employment contracts, how much debt we have outstanding, and a number of other things. Our cost of attendance, so our annual tuition and fees, total cost compared to our total Pell Award. Those are all there on that transparency site. It's all required, but it is a great source of information for you if you're looking for anything specific about the institution from an operational standpoint.
Trustee Siegel? Okay. All right. We have a motion to approve the local strategic value resolution as presented.
So moved.
Let me also just formally ask for a second.
Support.
All right, so for a motion here and second there. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Those opposed? And the motion carries. Now we're going to move into consent items. Now is the time that we will move to approve the consent items. May I have a motion to approve the consent items as presented?
Moved.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. We are into our action items, in particular purchases over $100,000. May I have a motion to approve the purchases over $100,000 as presented?
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Dr. Lepper, I believe we are at the President's report, and we have monitoring reports, institutional reports, and finance update.
Yes. So let me start with my report to the board. As Vice President Freiberger mentioned, there's always good things going on at GRCC, so there's quite a list of things here. So as you all know, on September 5th, we dedicated our storefront at Junior Achievement in BizTown. And so we are excited to see that happen. For those of you who weren't able to attend the dedication, students who earn a GRCC credential through that experience, 5th and 6th graders here in West Michigan go through that. They receive additional money in their paycheck that they can utilize in BizTown. And as part of their diploma that they get, they also get free tickets to a GRCC athletic event up to 4 guests. So we hope to see a number of young students and their families on campus, getting connected with them sooner rather than later. The Woodrick Center for Inclusion and Multicultural Affairs will be hosting this year's 30th year of the Diversity Lecture Series, which is open and free to the public. We have 4 speakers this year that include Dr. Shaquille Shaq Anthony from Corewell Health, Johnny Rodriguez, who's the president of LAUP, Dave Sarro from the Arab American National Museum, and Oval Barbie Jr., Human Resource Specialist. This is in conjunction with the framework that the Woodrick Center is using in their work for students this year, and that framework is Rise Up and Achieve, and they hosted their first multicultural reception on September 5th as well. I'm also happy to share that the dental hygiene graduates, we shared with you earlier information about our nursing program. but our dental hygiene graduates this year passed all 5 board exams at 100% pass rate. The last time this happened at GRCC was in 2017, so we're very, very proud of that. Also this week, our Veteran Services Office was recognized as a 24-25 gold level veteran-friendly school by the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency. And so extend our congratulations to Philip Blanchard and his staff for his leadership. I will also share that GRCC applied when it was accepted to the Racial Equity Leadership Academy hosted by Achieving the Dream. And the purpose of this institute is developing a long-range vision that will guide and identify racial equity changes at the college that need to happen. Dr. Likely and Jason Vincent led our application process to that and will be leading our efforts as an institution. And I'm going to fumble through this next part because I just got some of this data, but this has to do with our financial aid team, who just really has done a remarkable job, as well as many other departments from IT to admissions to academic advising and managing this year's FAFSA challenges. But we received or realized a 4% increase in the number of ICERs received, and that is the individual report that gets generated by the Department of Education for students who has indicated that they're interested in attending GRCC. So we saw a 4% increase, which is great, particularly given the challenges. We also saw a 16% increase in the number of students who were eligible for a Pell Grant, and we increased our Pell Grant awards by 20% overall. But looking at some of the additional data that David DeBoer provided me this afternoon, is where we are really making an impact is based upon the EFC category. So the students who have an auto or zero expected family contribution, we saw an increase of 21% this year over the previous year. So we moved that number from 1,233 students to 1,487. The next level up was $0 to $999. That moved 18% in the right direction. So we moved from 1,445 students qualifying for a full Pell Grant in that expected family contribution to almost 1,700. So what that is saying is our students who have the greatest need are getting connected to our financial aid processes, getting the FAFSA completed, and are getting the highest maximum awards. And also that has driven and changed some of the enrollment patterns for some of those same students. So students who received Pell, we also saw a 24% increase in the number of our Pell eligible students who are attending full time, and a 21% increase in our students who receive Pell at the 3/4 time level. So we're seeing more students get Pell, we're seeing the highest need students really getting more Pell, and we're also seeing more students come at least 3/4 time or full time. And so those are things that we all know support student success and completion. So kudos to our financial aid team for really driving that this year.
So Dr. Lepers, over the last several meetings, we talked about the slow rollout with FAFSA. So this is positive news, and so
Yes.
there wasn't really a negative impact as some of us thought might happen because of that poor transition, that poor rollout. You're getting the students who need the money the most are getting the money that they need in an appropriate timeline.
I don't know that we can safely say that there wasn't any harm. I think it was minimized by some of the things that we were doing, but I think also community colleges were probably positioned to attract students who may not have gotten information from a more expensive four-year option. So I think there was some benefit for us, but I still worry that we don't have the numbers from those who are eligible. We have some data that I didn't bring with me that are eligible for things like the Community College Guarantee or Michigan Reconnect, who aren't going anywhere. So there's still a number of students who qualify for those programs who aren't coming to us or anyone. And so we're working diligently to try to connect with those students to make sure that we are eliminating those barriers. But it's certainly a step in the right direction. So it is a positive step forward for us, but still work to be done. And I would just say, just to give some scope to this, during the months of July and August, our financial aid office fielded over 18,000 phone calls, which was a 56% increase over the previous year. Also from an enrollment standpoint, I will share that we also have our largest class of international students are on F1 visa status. So we have 65 students from a multitude of countries. I can share those with you later if you would like. Also at the Lakeshore campus, we are now at 906 students enrolled there, which is a 28.5% increase over the previous year. So we are starting to really connect with the community out in the Lakeshore. And we set a goal of 13,000 students for this fall enrollment. Our official count is that we are at 95.4% of that goal. And so we have currently 12,410 students enrolled as of 10-day count, which was this past Thursday, which is an increase of 2.1% over the previous year. We think we're still going to hit that 13,000 target because we have second 7-week sessions that are still being enrolled and students to attend. So I'm hoping that we can update you and say we met our goal of 13,000 students, but we're so close there that we can taste it. And since the fall of 2022, that translates to about 650 additional students that we saw in the fall semester over a 2-year period. So given our demographics challenges here in Michigan, I think that's a remarkable success and a testament to how hard our folks are working here to connect with high school students as well as adults and get them enrolled at GRCC. So kudos all around.
So when we think about our F1 students, are most of the F1 students here on another status and convert, or are they coming from overseas to college specifically to be Fs?
I don't know that information. Sheila, do you know that information from an admissions standpoint, or Ann?
We don't know, but we can get the answer.
We don't know that, but we can certainly get that information. The last thing I will share before turning
Dr.
the time
Lepek, I have
over-
just another question about the enrollment piece. So does the student enrollment at our Lakeshore campus kind of mirror the same full-time, part-time percentages as students here on our downtown campus?
I would have to double check those
Just
numbers.
curious, yeah, just curious if the percentage.
But as I looked through them, nothing stood out to me that was significant.
Okay, all right.
And tomorrow we'll be issuing a press release about our enrollment, and we have some additional demographic information in there that you may see. The last thing I will share is, as you recall, we're doing a 1-year pilot with the Rapid for free bus passes for our students and employees. And quite pleased to share that to date, as of Monday, today, we had 107 employees participating and 1,105 students participating. So it really has spoken to a need of our students and our faculty and staff. And so we will continue to provide updates on that. But we had long lines of people waiting to get their card activated to get the wave so that they could ride the bus system. And with that, I will turn the time over to Christine Kuhn, our Executive Director of Human Resources and Talent Development, to share our monitoring report about treatment of people.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. All right. So today, thanks, class. Today I'll report on workforce statistics from July 1st of 2023 to June 30th of 2024. As a reminder, like last year, we've changed the way that we report data on the fiscal year in order to share more recent data with you. In this last fiscal year, we did not see much variation from the previous fiscal year when looking across employee groups. We had slightly lower numbers of new hires, as the recruiting work will not show up until the next report because many of them started at the start of the semester, which will be on the August month for the next report. Reflecting on last year, we settled in a little bit more with our evidence-based selection process and made improvements to the process based on internal and external feedback that we had received. We've done a huge amount of work with the meet and confer compensation study that was completed, as well as beginning to implement an applicant tracking, onboarding, and performance management system that's a bit more current than the one we were using previously. All of this work will continue to move the college forward for years to come in the way we attract and retain our talent. As a reminder on this slide, this paragraph is in the board policy, and that is why we are here giving this report today. So looking at the overall demographics from the start of the fiscal year to the end of the fiscal year, you can see that we have consistency in the number of people that we've employed. And we've slightly increased our representation of underrepresented ethnic groups between the year start and the year end. You can also see movement between generations. We're seeing fewer baby boom employees and increasing the number of employees from Generation Z. This is something that we would anticipate to continue as we have retirees from the college and we have positions that we're filling with Generation Z employees. So now I'll get into some of the demographics by percentages. This is a breakdown of our entire benefited employee population. Like mentioned before, we've increased our population of employees from underrepresented ethnic groups to 23.2% from 22.6%. We continue to try to recruit and retain underrepresented employees, and we've partnered with community organizations to reach out to job seekers within those groups, as well as having taken an active approach using LinkedIn Recruiter to find more passive candidates. All right, the groups where we saw increases in underrepresented ethnic groups include APSS, CEBA, and PMA, which we formerly called Meet and Confer. We filled 16 faculty positions for the current academic year, which won't be reflected again until the next year report due to the start dates. New hires, we hired a total of 65 new employees in 23-24 fiscal year. This is the breakdown by both gender and ethnic group. We've held very steady with our gender demographics over the years. This year, we're working to update demographic reporting to include gender identity beyond the federally mandated definitions, so you should expect to see more information on that next year. Promotions. Our promotion data shows that we're promoting underrepresented ethnic groups at a rate of just over 29%, which is above the overall population at the college. We continue to work to promote internal talent and provide opportunities for advancement and enlargement of responsibilities for those wanting to move up into different roles at GRCC. Separations. Unfortunately, we're also separating employees within underrepresented groups at just over 31%. Which creates a challenge to move the needle on our employee population to better reflect the student population. We're seeing that the job market continues to be very competitive for the types of positions our employees are qualified for and the labor market is seeking. Looking at the last 2 years, we've had a bit less activity across hiring, promotions, and separations this year. Again, we saw a surge in retirements the prior 2 years after the pandemic. And while we're still seeing retirements, the overall numbers have come down, leaving us with the numbers that we're seeing this year. With the lower number of opportunities available across the board, we're seeing fewer promotions. As mentioned last year, the APSS surge in promotions in 21-22 and 22-23 was a result of putting a new classification review in process for all of those positions, resulting in a surge for that group. The other groups are seeing lower numbers, but scaled consistently based on the overall employee movement. With the new hire data, we're seeing consistency across groups with less employee movement. Our PMA group consistently sees the highest number of new hires per year with around 250 employees and more turnover than our faculty group of a similar size. Looking over the years at separations, again, our PMA group sees the most turnover. Our exit interview data consistently shows that there are opportunities available in a highly competitive labor market seeking talent that we have within our organization. We continue to get feedback that employees leave for higher salaries, and employees in this group are seeking more flexible work options, whether that be remote or a flexible work schedule. With faculty, we're seeing much of our turnover resulting from retirements. Our APSS staff are finding promotional opportunities outside of GRCC, and CEBA employees are finding opportunities with more competitive pay or better shifts. So looking forward, as we look ahead, we anticipate ongoing employee movement both into and out of the college, reflecting broader trends in workforce mobility. Generational differences and evolving workplace expectations remain key factors. In particular, millennials and Generation Z employees continue to exhibit high career mobility compared to previous generations. A recent Resource Solutions survey highlighted that 73% of Generation Z employees would prioritize well-being and fulfillment over compensation, even expressing willingness to accept pay cuts for more meaningful work. Labor market challenges persist, especially in our region, where we face competition from other organizations seeking to attract talent. Furthermore, the inflationary pressures and rising cost of living may be contributing factors to employees leaving GRCC for promotional opportunities and higher paying roles. As a service-oriented institution, we strive to maintain flexibility while providing essential on-site support to our students and community, though this balancing act remains challenging. Competition has also intensified as non-local employers are increasingly offering fully remote positions, particularly for our technical and operational roles of similar nature. To address these challenges, we're implementing several strategic initiatives aimed at improving both recruitment and retention. Our proactive recruiting approach includes leveraging LinkedIn recruiting to actively engage with candidates who have interacted with our GRCC LinkedIn page. This tool enables us to raise awareness of our open positions and connect with highly qualified candidates. In addition, we continue to strengthen partnerships with community agencies and extend our reach to passive job seekers. We are in the process of launching a new applicant tracking, onboarding, and performance management system, Clear Company. This system is designed to be user-friendly and accessible, allowing candidates to apply through both desktop and mobile platforms. Furthermore, the system increases the visibility of our job postings by automatically pushing them out to a wider range of sources, thereby broadening our exposure to both active and passive candidates. Finally, we're excited to welcome Dr. Likely as the new leader of People, Culture, and Equity, overseeing our human resources efforts. Dr. Likely has already demonstrated exemplary leadership, bringing a critical equity lens to the campus-wide discussions and providing invaluable support to the HR team in our ongoing recruitment and retention efforts. His focus on enhancing the employee experience is evident through his plans to conduct an engagement survey, which will help us identify key strengths and areas for improvement. The data will allow us to develop actionable strategies and celebrate our successes and address our challenges. I'm grateful for the opportunity to work alongside Dr. Likely, and I am confident that under his leadership, we will continue to strengthen our workforce and advance the college's mission. And with that, I'm happy to take questions.
I have a question about the challenges section. So, like things like inflation, for instance, you said it may be, and I'm wondering sort of like causation versus correlation, and how you landed on these as challenges, how we actually know if that is what it is, and you know, I'm just curious how we came to like those three.
So in reading articles from the Society for Human Resource Management and staying up on that, the trends are showing that inflation is part of the cause of people leaving, and just correlating that people are leaving for higher paying jobs and then attaching that to the inflation.
The other question I had was around the generational differences, and specifically, you know, highlighting that in the connection to one of the first slides you had around Gen Z now being sort of the folks who are getting hired the most, right. And what the implications are for that. You know, Gen Z are now the generation having the most children. They're also the loneliest and most disconnected nationwide and in Michigan. So what are, you know, when we're thinking about some of these other challenges, how does this information and sort of knowing who we're hiring and who that generation might be on as a whole, how that's informing the way we're thinking about supporting folks as they may enter into this work?
The generations. And that is a part of the conversation that Dr. Likely and I have had around the engagement survey, asking the questions and trying to be proactive in responding to some of those requests or expectations from the newer generations entering the workforce or entering our workforce.
So, Executive Director Christine, first of all, thank you so much. I think we have been asking for data broken down like this, and I feel like you've integrated our wishes. So thank you for breaking it down in that way. I wonder about the percentages related to your engagement survey, as well as the retention rate, and the when I looked at the separation data, the percentage of those who are separating, how many of them actually participate in an exit interview. Those are some of my wonderings.
Yeah, so I'll have to go back and find that data for you,
Okay.
but I'll make sure to do that.
Yeah, and again, Dr. Likely, welcome. Thank you. Other questions or comments from trustees?
Right. It was going to be a follow-up to that, actually, around the qualitative data that you may have in terms of specific stories or quotes or input from the community, both the faculty staff that are at the college and also from folks that are in that separation category. And so as you look to perhaps bring information back, I think that would be incredibly helpful, just to piggyback on that.
I think the other piece that makes me think of, and Trustee Kuchi, I see in your hand, I thought you were moving, so you can think of something if you weren't, something to ask. But when you were referring to some of the research or articles that you've read, when you bring back the data, it might be fascinating for the board to read that too, in terms of who's coming in and the distinctions that you were making. One or two. Don't do any extra work for us, but that might be nice. Trustee Dave, were you about to say something, or am I making that up?
Yeah, I'm wasting people's time with my comment, though I understand we're not hiring in the boomer generation. What caused me pause was, so I moved from boomer to silent? Is that the next one? Is that really what I, and I understand why we're not hiring from the silent generation either, but maybe we could come up with a different term than silent for.
Don't think you get to move generations, you stick with your own.
Stay with your own.
You're always a boomer, sorry, Dave.
You're always a boomer. Oh, good. I don't move from boomer to silent. I'm sorry I wasted your time.
But just talking about the generations, is there any information about how each generation connects to the current classes? Do they teach differently? Do students receive information differently from depending on what generation it is?
I wouldn't have that data, but we could work with the provost's office to help find some of that more qualitative data.
Yeah, because if that is the case, it might be helpful to allow a silent generation to understand what he or she do to make sure they're connecting to that generation. I'm an Xer. I think we're Xers. I'm not sure. I'm an Xer. And if I'm teaching, understanding how that new generation is learning, because the way I learned is very different from the way my daughter's in school and they do things totally different. I can barely help her with her homework, right? And so just understanding and making sure that our faculty has the tools to understand where these students are coming from and how they learn best. I'm sure that's happening at some point already, but
Well, if I could
so we
add
can understand that.
to that process is led by our TILD group, Teaching, Learning, Distance Education, which is led by Dr. Amy Lynn. And so there's professional development for our faculty available through that. And certainly we can have a follow-up to that conversation. And we can have Dr. Lynn come in and share that information, the work that's being done in that area. But I also would share that some of the things that we have done as we have transitioned to the Clear Company format is that this format allows us to have multiple applications where our previous system only allowed one. So under our previous system, it was called resume. And so regardless of what position you were applying for at the college, it would ask you to submit a resume, knowing that a resume isn't necessary for many of our jobs. So we have changed the language. So we have resumes associated with job type. So it may be an application for some positions versus a resume for others. We have also, as we've posted positions, taken a very close look at what are the educational requirements and is that really the educational requirement that's needed? Often higher education, we think every position needs a master's or a doctorate, and they don't. And so we are looking at where we have maybe drifted, and so we've made some corrections in those areas and also done some trade outs. So it may be a bachelor's degree plus experience, it may be an associate's degree plus experience, so that we're having a wider range of individuals who qualify or meet the minimum qualifications to be considered for positions. That's something that you all will remember we started with our academic advisors about a year ago. And so we've done that with a few positions. We're trying to track that. We are finding in many cases that there is reasons to have the educational requirements, but where we can make those adjustments, we are. And also from a generational standpoint, we have adjusted our work remote agreement process, or policy. So if an individual qualifies for remote work, they can take up to 2 days a week to work remotely. For those of us who don't qualify for remote work, we can work with our supervisors in circumstances. We used to limit folks to 10 days a year. 12 days a year. I think it was 10 when I got here, then went to 12, and now we're saying we're removing that 12-day also, so that we're trying to give our employees the most flexibility, but that's up to the supervisor to manage, making sure that the area is covered, making sure that there's some fairness in that process, that I'm not taking every Friday off or working remotely every Friday because of X, that there's some equity in that. And so we're trying to maximize that flexibility as a retention effort to meet the needs of our employees, but yet continue to serve our students so that they can be successful.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments from trustees?
Before we move on, if I may, just want to acknowledge Christine Kuhn. Tomorrow is technically her last day with us. She is moving on to a different company to work in a different role and has been with the college twice during her career. And so I want to thank her for her good work with the comp study, with onboarding this new technology, and thank her for her service to the college. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you so much. We do not have an institutional report, correct?
Correct, we do not, but we do have a report, a finance update. So Vice President Freiberger, if you could come back to the podium, please.
Thank you again. Included in your packet are financial statements for the month ended August 31st, 2024. A couple of things I would point out in that activity, and then of course I'm happy to answer any questions. Most specifically, as we look at our general fund where all of our basic operations go, and on the revenue side, you have heard Dr. Lepper mention that our enrollment is up. Not only are our numbers up over what we had projected, a little over 2%, our mix of residency has also shifted in that our out-of-district numbers versus our in-district numbers are up at a higher rate, which will also help skew our revenue up. So while we don't have all of that data calculated, certainly we'll bring that back to you. We will see a fairly significant positive increase in our tuition revenue. So we are watching that. State aid, you'll see a small dollar amount in there, which looks a little bit odd. That is simply a carryover from the state from last year's numbers. Our first actual state aid payment for this fiscal year will come to us in October, as it does every year. Other than that, I am happy to answer any questions that you might have about the financial statements. Would also like to share a little bit of exciting news around our facilities. We just were informed that our Piazza has won yet another award. We have won an AIA award, American Institute of Architecture award, both locally as well as at the state level, which is great news, a very prestigious award. We're very excited about that. And then we also just received notification that our ATC edition, and yes, it's been a very long time since we've opened that edition, it takes that long, but that construction has received LEED Silver rating. So we're excited about that as well. Huge thanks to Jim Van Dockenberg and our facilities team with all of that effort, but we're very pleased with both of those. Happy to answer any questions that you might have on financial statements or anything else.
Questions, comments, trustees? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Alex Miranda from our Student Government Association, President, to give a student government update.
Good afternoon, trustees, and thank you for having me up here once again. It's nice to see you all. My name is Alex Miranda. I'm the GRCC Student Government President. This is my second year as Student Government President and my last year. So we're gonna make it worth it this year. We're going out with a bang, so. Our first update for today is we have a brand new executive board for the 2024 through 2025 academic year, except my position. We now have an entire new student government executive board serving for the 2024/2025 year. We've been making great progress over the summer and throughout this fall semester, and we're extremely excited to continue through the rest of the year. They're mostly all here at the moment, so I would like to briefly introduce them. We have Maria Choi as the new student government treasurer, Troy Inkorwang as the new communications director, and Jennifer Gamino Alvarez as the vice president. She isn't able to be here at the moment, but this new entire team has been doing an amazing job, and we're going to prove it this year. We're going to show everyone. And we've grown very close as a team with our short time together, and we know we're going to have an amazing year. Our next update revolves around voter registration efforts. This semester, we're focusing a lot of our time and efforts on getting students registered to vote. We find it important to get involved in nonpartisan voter initiatives as we're only 49 days away from Election Day. Tomorrow is actually our first voter registration event that we named Pizza to the Polls, which is taking place on the first floor of the Student Center. We plan on having drinks, snacks, and pizza available for students while educating them on voting. We have more voter registration events scheduled, and we're enthusiastic to continue helping students to get out to vote this year. Our next update is centered around advocacy efforts. This academic year, we want to highlight the diverse student population we have around GRCC and call attention to important initiatives that students can take advantage of. A couple weeks ago, we participated in the Student Health and Wellness Fair, in which we promoted sexual health and contraceptives to students on campus. We plan on doing a similar event again in February at the Lakeshore campus if the weather permits. We also want to celebrate the numerous Heritage Months at GRCC, and our first celebration will be based around Hispanic Heritage Month on October 7th. We are partnering with the Woodrick Center for Inclusion and Multicultural Affairs to facilitate this event, in which we will have numerous cultural foods from Hispanic countries, educational resources, local Grand Rapids Hispanic organizations promoting their services, performances, and more. We plan on facilitating or at least helping with similar events to celebrate Native American Heritage Month in November, Black History Month in February, and Asian Heritage Month in May. And our last update is we had our first town hall of the semester last week, Wednesday, and it went very well. This year, we are partnering with the Campus Activities Board to have both student leader organizations present at the now Student Leaders Town Halls. Our town halls will also now be monthly rather than bi-weekly. The students at our town hall approved the annual student activities budget that we proposed and an allocation request to send the Foreign Affairs Club to Model UN in Chicago. There were overall great conversations throughout the 2.5 hours we met together, and we're ready to continue these conversations next month on October 9th. To thank the students and the student organizations that came to our town hall last week, we provided free headshots after the town hall, and now each student organization that attends our town halls will receive a $25 incentive for each one they attend, up to $100 for the entire academic year. That's what we have for this year, or at the moment. I'm open for any comments, questions. If not, I can just sit back down.
I have a comment and a question. The first comment is thank you for doing nonpartisan voter registration on our campus. That is so important. And my second question is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but do you have to be an unregistered voter to come to pizza and politics?
Nope,
Okay.
it's
Thank
open
you.
to anyone. Anyone who wants
Thanks.
pizza.
Great, thank you.
Anything else?
If I could just echo Alex and the Student Government Association Executive Council is just really off to a great start, and I have no doubt that you're going to do amazing things this year. We did something new this year. We invited the Executive Council and to have lunch with the executive leadership team of the college so that we're building relationship and familiarity. And so we're a committed partner to the success of student government, and we appreciate all that you're doing. You're making a difference.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, never underestimate how important the work is that you guys do. Don't ever underestimate that. How many students get in their car by themselves, drive on campus by themselves, wonder, am I going to get a smile from anybody? Am I going to interact with anybody? the work that you guys do make all of that, those connections possible. So don't minimize the importance of what you do.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, anything else?
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you once again for having me.
Thank you. So, does not look like we have a report from the Faculty Association?
Correct.
Or Foundation?
That concludes my reports.
Okay, thank you so much. And Dr. Williams, might we have any community communication? Nope.
You have a board report, Bridget report?
I do not, and I do not have a report either, so we're moving to our last opportunity for open comment. Now we will open the meeting up for our last public comment. If there is anyone in the audience that would like to address the board regarding any matter, you may do so at this time. Not seeing any. Final trustee comments. Comments from trustees. Go for it.
I have one comment. I just want to say thank you to everyone that spoke today, and also to GRCC and under President Lepper's leadership. The number of PAL eligible students and EFC, to me, that stood out in terms of the increase. And this is more of a comment, and perhaps there is an answer to it, but I look forward to also seeing, in addition to students connecting with financial aid, how they are connecting to other resources on campus. So if the percentage of a specific group of students goes up, specifically, historically, at times, one of the most vulnerable groups, those groups coming from low-income backgrounds, based on a variety of different factors. I am curious, and my wonderings are, how are those students also connecting to a variety of different support resources in addition to financial aid? So it's a great start for them to be able to connect and for those numbers to go up. But as we look at the success rate of those students and how we may be able to surround those students with additional support, I look forward to seeing how that also continues to grow within the institution. So thank you for everyone that reported it out. Looks great.
Thank you for that.
Yes, I was able to attend the graduation for the corrections officers this week. A wonderful celebration, a lot of families there, a lot of pride, a lot of people excited about a new career. As I was watching the graduates come by, I recognized their face, and it was one of my classmates from high school that's making a change in career, and just an example of how the community college can make those connections, and shout out to Patrick Davis, make those connections and provide opportunities for people that are within our community. So very excited to be part of that.
That's awesome. Okay. Thank you again for all of the work that you did in putting the presentations together. Trustees, thanks for the comments and the questions. We are moving to an executive session, I think, just next door. And thanks for allowing me to act like Thor with the gavel. So, meeting adjourned. This is what you need me to sign. And you have to carry pictures into the room. Daniel also.
Sorry.